PHP sessions are extremely convenient and easy to use, but there's one drawback. All of the data for the session is stored in the session file, and the way to access the session file is through the session ID. And when the session expires or is destroyed, all of that data is completely gone, and there's no way to get it back. A session is great for a relatively short-term storage of user data, but you also need to provide a way of permanently storing important facts about the user, such as username, password, account information, and so on. And so that brings us to reading and writing files. And we've seen how to use fgetCSV along with fopen and fclose in order to read data out of a CSV file. There are some other ways of reading and writing data. So in addition to fgetCSV, fputCSV, there's fgets, which gets a single line, and fputs, which writes a single line. And these are useful for text files that are line-oriented. So if you want to read a single line at a time until you hit the end of the file, or write a single line of text at a time, fputs is great, and fget is great for that. And then there's also fread and fwrite, which are good for reading and writing buffers of data. So if you have an arbitrary buffer of data, either text or binary, and you want to write or read a particular length of that buffer, fread and fwrite are good for doing that. You can either get or put the entire contents of a file. So fget contents will get the entire contents of a file as a single string. File put contents will go ahead and write the entire contents. And those are your primary mechanisms for reading and writing from an open file. In addition, you can get some information about the file. Stat and fstat will give you information about whether the file exists, what type of file it is, what the permissions are on it, and also the size of the file, which can be pretty handy. FEOF will tell you where the file pointer is, whether you're at the end of the file or not. Fflush will cause any buffered file output to get flushed to the physical file out on disk. And then flock is particularly important, and we'll talk about this one in detail, but basically your web server is going to be accessed simultaneously by multiple users, and for a busy site you may have hundreds or even thousands of simultaneous users, and many page accesses are going to cause the same files to get read or written. But what happens if one user is trying to change the contents of the file while another is reading it? Or if two users both read the contents at the same time and then both try to make changes to the same file. You're going to end up with inconsistent or incomplete results when that happens. And flock provides a mechanism where only a single user can access a certain file for particular kinds of operations. And then you can also use flock in combination with ftruncate and frewind in order to open a file and then lock it so that nobody else can access it, reading the contents with fgetCSV or fgets or fread, then making a change to the information you just read, truncating the file so that it's empty, rewinding the file pointer so that you're starting at the beginning, and then using fputCSV or fputs or fwrite in order to rewrite the contents, unlock the file so that other people can access it, and then close it. So that stream of operations allows multiple people to access the same file, but causes the actual changes to be consistent. So let's go ahead and see how that could work. I'm going to go ahead and create another new file. And this is going to be modify file. And I'm going to create a form here. And I'm just going to create a simple post form. And I'm going to have it reload the same file. And then I'm going to put 2 inputs on this form. So there's going to be a key field, and a value field. Let's go ahead and put breaks after each of those. And then I'm going to have a submit button. And then let's put some labels here. And I don't need a label for the submit button. Let's go ahead and load this and see how we're doing so far. So this is going to be modify file by PHP. Great. So it's not very beautiful, but it will work. And then when the user enters some values like 1, value 1, and hit submit, that data is going to get posted back to this page. So we need some PHP on this side to do something with those values. So first, let's get the key but let's check if this is set. So if set post of key, then we're going to return post of key. Otherwise, null. And then we'll do the same with value. Otherwise null. And then if not empty key and not empty value, then we're going to want to write the key and value to a file. But first we want to find out whether the key already exists or not. So this is getting complicated enough that I'm going to create a function for it. And PSR1 says I'm not supposed to put functions here. So I'm going to go to the utilities file, and I'm going to create a function called update file, which is going to take a key and a value. And I'm going to go ahead and includes utilities. So require once includes utilities. And here's what the thing is going to do. So the first thing we need to do is open the file. And I'm going to assume the key and value is always going to be text. But I need to know the name of the file, the location. So let's go ahead and put this in a data folder as myfile.csv. And then I'm going to go ahead and create that data folder. And I'm going to create a new file called myfile.csv, and that's the file I'm opening. And I want to open it for read plus. So this means both read and write. When you open it, you're initially at the beginning of the file, and you can read the contents. Every time you read from the file, it advances the file pointer until you hit the end. But you can also modify the file by writing to it. So now I have a file. I want to lock it because I'm going to be changing it. So I don't want anybody else jumping in and reading the file while I'm updating it, or getting a copy of it and then trying to modify it later based on the copy they got, or anything like that. So I'm going to lock the file using flock. And the mode that I'm going to use is lock ex, which means exclusive lock. So now only this piece of code is going to have access to this file. Anybody else who's running this function and gets to this flock statement, it's going to just sit here and wait until that lock is released before it can execute the code. So it effectively serializes access to the file so that only one person can execute this code at a time. And then we're going to start by reading through this file and seeing if we have a line that has the key in it. And we're going to store each line of this file into an array so that we can write it back out to the file after we're done. So let's go ahead and make a new array called contents. And then we're going to loop through the file. So do line is, I'm going to make this a CSV file, so fget CSV, and then file. If not line, that means we've hit the end, so we're going to break out of the loop. Otherwise, contents of key is equal to line. So I'm going to have a key field, which I'm going to go ahead and put in a constants file. So the key field will be the first field. And the value field is going to be the second item in the array. So this is creating an associative array where the key is whatever the key field was, and the value is going to be the line, and that's everything we need for reading the file. So we're going to continue doing this while line is not null. So we're never actually going to kick out from here. We're always going to hit this break and jump out. But we've seen this code before, so it should be relatively familiar. So now we've read the contents of the file. Either key already exists in contents, in which case contents of key will be a line, or contents of key is empty, in which case this is a brand new key that we haven't added to the file before. So we'll say either way, we want to set contents of key equal an array of key and value. So this is going to be the same format as the lines that we got out of the file, and we're storing it in contents under key. So we've modified the array, and now we're ready to rewrite this output file. So here's how to rewrite it. First thing we want to do is we want to truncate our file, so that zeroes it out. Go ahead and set the size to 0. And then we want to rewind the file pointer. So that sets the file pointer back to the beginning of the file. And now we can start writing. And we're going to use a loop to write the file. So let's go ahead and use for each contents as line f put csv file 1. So it reads in all the lines, modifies one of them, and then writes all the lines back out. Now we're finished with the file, so we can unlock it. Use flock file lock un to unlock the file. That gives everybody else permission to start reading and writing it. And then finally we close the file. And that's the safe way to modify the file. Since everything is inside of flock with lock exclusive, we know that we're not going to have two people trying to modify the data at the same time. So now let's go ahead and try it. I'm going to go ahead and pop this up again. It's empty. And I'm going to put key 1, value 1, submit. And let's pop this back up and reload. Oh, so I forgot to call it. So let's go ahead and go back to modify file. And if we get here, we want to call update file, pass in key and value. So we'll enter the values 1 again and value 1, submit. And now if we open this, we have a row. So let's go ahead and add another row to value 2. Oh, and I forgot to include my constants, so I got the line, but let's go back to modify file, and we'll require once includes / constants. And we'll reload. And now let's try 3, value 3. So 3, value 3. And now let's say that later on I want to change the value of 2. So I'm going to go 2, new value 2. And you see the value changed. And then 1, new value 1. And we'll do 4, value 4. And then 5, value 5. And then let's change the value of 5. And we'll also change the value of 2 again. So now if we look at the contents of the file, we have the same keys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we've updated all the values appropriately. And since this is stored out on the file system, it will be there permanently until the file gets deleted.